Imagine for yourself a life full of magic and wonder. What would that look like? What would your life be like? What would it feel like? What things would you do? What things would show up? What does magic and wonder and that kind of thing conjure up in your mind? What does it make you feel like? One of the things that we often get misunderstood about magic is that we always want it to happen outside of us. And one of the most interesting things is that we're looking in the wrong places to find it. Where you find magic is actually inside you. And once you begin to find it inside you, it starts to come back from the outside towards you. And so there's a lot of ways you can practice this. And as you get that imagination of what your life would look like if you were looking for magic, if you were creating it, what would it be like in your life as it showed up? Then you'll start to see, as you look for it, as you see it in your environment, it starts to come in more and more. It's actually your mind and your emotions, somewhat kind of the energy in your system that's making you feel that magic, which means that you can practice it. You can actually create something within yourself that pulls that magic towards you. So with your mind, you could look for it. You imagine what that would be like. You create those images. You kind of do a mental rehearsal to see what that would look like for you, and then you'll know what to look for in your environment. Because remember, your brain is like it's like a tracking and seeking and a magic seeking device if you turn it into it. It's also, if you're looking for bad things, if you're looking for horrible things to happen, if you're always worried about them, it's going to draw those things in your life because you're actually moving towards them. You're looking for them all the time. So you can begin to create magic by looking for it, by creating it in your mind first. You can do it in your imagination so you know what it looks like. You can just look in your environment for the beautiful things, like what's going on now that's beautiful. For instance, I can hear the birds outside my window. That's how you kind of do it with your mind, but you can also do it with your emotions. And the way you do that is you try to create this feeling of magic, of looking for wonder, of amazing things happening around you. And as you create the feeling, that starts to express into your environment, and then it often comes back. It's something that you can practice over time. And then you can put those two things together. You create the imagination, you create the emotion, you create the feeling, and you stack them together. And then you practice that, and you practice that. And eventually you start to see it coming back to you in your life. And all kinds of interesting things happen. And then you'll go, how did that happen to me? I know I'd seen that in my mind a little bit, but how did I create that? As an example, when I was at the university, I went to study in Germany for a year. Another friend of mine went to Northern Ireland to Belfast to study for a year. We didn't keep in contact. I just knew he was out there. And then at one point when I was traveling with my girlfriend and a couple friends, we were going through Ireland. We got off a train at a station. I was running for one train, he was running for the other. We ran by each other. We stopped for like 10 seconds and we were like, oh, it's you. I can't talk, I gotta run. He was going to work, I was going to where I was going, and we couldn't even exchange numbers to meet up later. But we just happened to see each other when I'd been studying in Germany and when he'd been studying in Ireland as we ran by one another. And there's all these like little things that can show up in your life that start to make you feel like there's something magical. As you start to create it and you look for it, as you start to feel it, it comes back into your life. Then you start to feel it and look for it more, comes back into your life. And eventually you create this interesting cycle. That doesn't mean everything will always be perfect, but you'll start to have some magic that comes into your life, which is really a cool thing. If you don't do that, the opposite is that life starts to feel mundane and heavy, and you feel like everything is a grind, and you can become exhausted and worn down and sort of depressed and anxious. It's not a great feeling. And so looking for the magic, trying to create some magic, even just for yourself in your own little place with no one else around, just begin to practice that, and it'll start to show up in your life. Then your life will begin to change around it. So let's take a second now and do it. Just sort of close your eyes. And just imagine something magical happening. You don't even have to get specific. Just kind of something cool happens. You feel a little bit of like a magical response, like, wow, that seems like life is bigger than what I would have thought it would have been, or maybe even what you were taught. Wow, these things keep happening for me over and over. Just these little magical moments that stack up into bigger ones. And you start to teach yourself to look for them. You start to teach this powerful mind, these powerful emotions, this powerful brain you have to look for them and to create them. It's good to do it when you're nice and relaxed. And just see if you can create that feeling in yourself. And 5-10 seconds will get you going. You can do it for much longer. And if you practice it over and over, eventually you'll begin to see you get to kind of create this magic in your life, almost like manifesting some kind of magic there. And your life can begin to change. You can have a lot of fun with it. So the idea is you're kind of creating magic on your own. You're creating it with your mind. You're creating it with your emotions. And then you'll start to create it with your body. And eventually it'll start to come back to you. Then you start to create it for yourself and you help to create it for others. And eventually you have this wonderful, magical life where it's like fireworks are happening in some interesting places and times that you wouldn't expect. And eventually it just starts to snowball into bigger things. And that can keep you from feeling all kinds of negative emotions because you've been practicing ahead of time. It's really hard to feel positive about life if you're always practicing looking for negativity and feeling negative about everything. So practice it, make it fun, have a good time with it. Try to manifest, try to create that magic in your own life, in your own self, in your own mind, in your own emotions, and then pour it into life a little bit. You might have a much better time with it. It's sort of like becoming your own Merlin in your own life. You create your own magic. You take it from the inside out and make a life of it. So if you have some stories like that you've done, put them in the comments. I'd love to talk about it. Share them with each other, and it can be kind of a wonderful thing. But follow for more tips to feel better, and we'll see you next time.